Well, are you new to the council or?
Yes,
Ah.
brand new. I'm the
Welcome.
new kid on the block, as I like to say. Hello, everybody. Glad you're here, Doug. Can you hear us? Good. I see you're outside on your porch. Good
Yep.
choice.
I'm here.
All right. Do we need a roll call or do you got that handled? Okay. And then we have minutes. Anybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Any comments, corrections?
Looks great to me.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve? Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay, it passes. Great. So, we have an appearance. Justin, do you want to introduce our guest?
Well, just before that, maybe just check me.
Oh, was there appearances?
Yeah, appearances.
Okay, that's included. Gotcha. Chuck,
I guess,
I'm Rick. I'm the co-chair. And if you want to say something, you can unmute and then we'll hear you.
Sure, I'd just like to say good evening, everyone, and thank you for all the work that you do. I would like to request, I live on St. Teresa Terrace, by the way, in Monona. It would be nice for the information on the website to be updated with like stop locations and things. When I was on the route the other day, one of the drivers commented that the signs that are the physical signs that are placed, like there's one at Schofield and Dean. He commented that those are old or obsolete, and it seems like the locations of the bus stops for the route on the internet don't always match up with the signs that are physically present. And it seems like it'd be nice if some of that could be updated. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to have your input. Okay, thank you. And so Madison Metro, you want to introduce
yeah,
Justin?
this is Justin. He's the head of Madison Metro. He's the one I've been kind of working with some other guys. I asked him here for just for some questions. I know the committee at the last meeting wanted Madison Metro here for some questions. I did email him some of the questions and he did respond to everybody got. So I don't know if there's any further questions or if you want something to expand on. Or with Justin.
Yeah, I think we probably do. How should we do this? Just go around and if anyone has questions, so we can just do it one at a time. Start with,
Is that easiest for you, Justin?
Yeah, that works great.
great. Oh, let me just ask Justin, were you at any of the public meetings here in Monona?
So I did not come to the public meeting. Some of our staff members were there.
Okay.
I believe I think I chatted with this group maybe a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've worked with our group before.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious. And what is your position there at Madison Metro?
I'm the general manager at Metro.
Okay, and you're still ticking after June 11th?
I'm a bit tired, I'll be honest, but
Okay.
things are going well. So
Okay, I heard there weren't a lot of problems. Is that true?
definitely, I mean, there were some, of course, which we expected, but I would say there were fewer than we expected. So that's a good thing.
Well, good. I'm glad you made it through that. Do you want to go first? You have a question?
Yeah, because I think, one of the kind of outstanding questions that I don't know if it came up at the last meeting, my sincere apologies for not having that on my calendar and being there. But one of the questions is, people have been asking about estimates on how long it takes to get uptown. Right, and now that the buses are running, the routes are out, are we able to know better under our proposals and with the current rollout, like what would be these times that it'll take for people to get uptown? Or, the people to get around or get it around a little bit better. So I think that's one now that you guys have kind of the maps, because I think the last time that we talked with Metro, it was still not yet in the final planning phase, so they didn't have any estimates of time yet.
Well, the route, I believe, Justin, confirmed it's an hour altogether, so all the way back and forth.
Well, I understand that the Monona Loop, the C3 route that we're thinking of
Mhm.
endorsing is an hour loop.
You're right.
But the question is from, say, the intersection of Monona Drive and Dean Avenue, how long does it take to get uptown?
Or downtown or campus or what have you.
Yeah, those were some of the unanswered questions that, we were hoping to understand a little bit better.
And maybe now that the routes have changed, we can get a better calculation on that.
And yeah, so is there, I can actually give you a pretty good approximation just right now. If there's a point in Monona that you'd like, basically what the origin and destination sample you'd like me to run.
I think Addie said Monona Drive and Dean. I don't know if that's a stop or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So I'm thinking like this is kind of. Right, because that's Dean and Monona
Yeah,
Drive.
Dean and-
Apologies, I'm pointing at the map over here, sorry.
So Dina Monona Drive is what she was pointing at.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Intersection.
everything else in the city would be a little bit longer than that. Or alternatively from, I think Dean and Monona Drive, and then the second one would be Broadway and Monona Drive,
Oh, okay,
right?
yeah,
Because those are kind of the two ends of Monona.
So I would say from Dean and Monona Drive, you're probably to the square, you're looking at 25 minutes. Something like that. I mean, give or take, certainly a few either way, but and then where was the other one that you mentioned?
Broadway and
Monona.
we don't, it would be Broadway.
Okay.
Jackson, not sure.
Well, I think this also takes, Justin, this takes into account the new L and,
Broadway and Cops.
So, sorry, on your loop, so like Monona Drive and Femrite, that would be, I think, the closest point there on your loop.
You can
That's
that's
probably,
the first stop after 51.
you're probably looking at 15, probably 35 minutes from there.
from Femrite, Monona Drive.
Yeah.
How about from Cops and Monona Drive, or Cops and Broadway? So as soon as you get off 50 Olson Road, you make that first turn, which is, I believe.
Okay. So probably 40 minutes.
Okay.
I'm rounding to the nearest 5. I would say any of these is probably plus or minus 3 minutes, but
Yeah.
Are all these times available on your website now? Do you have a calculator?
everything from Cottage Grove and Dempsey is.
Okay.
And so I'm approximating the time in Monona from Monona, whatever point that is, to Cottage Grove and
Okay.
Dempsey, and then it's about 19 minutes from Cottage Grove and Dempsey to the square on the Route C.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay,
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps saying. They're like, oh, well, that's interesting.
yeah.
Good.
Well, it's good to have some definition to it, some specific.
Yeah.
Specificity.
And the other question, Justin, is about transfers. So that would be, we would get on one bus and get up to the square on one bus with no transfer?
Correct.
Good, okay.
Transfers are no more.
Yeah, but if you're going somewhere other than the square or campus, have the ability to transfer to other routes as well, and it's all part of the same fare system, so there's no cost for a transfer.
Oh, there are transfers.
If you want to go other places.
Yeah,
If you want to go to East Town Mall or something, you would have to make
Okay.
a transfer, but there would be no cost, or there would be no additional cost for that transfer. It's just the
Okay.
same fare.
but there would be some time lag probably between those two buses. You're not gonna,
Most likely, yeah.
yeah, okay. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Laura, did you have a question?
We wondered, and you answered it a bit here, our question number 1 was within Monona, for someone in Monona who's going somewhere in Monona. That's,
Yeah,
it's a 1 hour loop.
So yeah, one clarification there. The loop itself is a half an hour, it's 30 minutes. So
Oh.
basically, if you're going from Cottage Grove and Dempsey through the loop back to Cottage Grove and Dempsey, it would be 30 minutes.
Right, then the loop back is the 30 minutes, so
So,
That's
but
total.
yeah,
However,
that's the total, route. Yeah, so it starts from Dempsey, goes to Stoughton Road and through Monona, and then
Mhm.
changes to go downtown, so that, all that process together is 30 minutes, is an hour. So it takes 30 minutes to get through the town, then you gotta go downtown, which is the additional
Yeah.
30 minutes to
Well,
get to the hour.
the other thing though that's happening is that as I'm understanding, the recommendation is the Monona C route and enable stops on the L and G routes that pass through Monona.
Well, that's something we would work on with them, yeah, so that's the,
And so enabling that means there's buses going both directions up Monona Drive.
right, but they're going, yeah, yes.
Yeah, so it's not, so I think there's, I don't know, it seems like to tell somebody like to go to the grocery store in an hour. It might, the specifics of it might be that there's instead, like, you go the C bus down and the H bus back or something, right? Because we're gonna have all three buses passing through our community at different kind of times. Yeah,
Yes.
so we don't, but yeah, the loop's 30 minutes,
Well, I'm sure.
but there's gonna be these other buses going up and down through town.
So you're not gonna have to wait hours. for the bus.
yeah, right.
Right,
And obviously, it depends on where you are in Monona, right? If you're near
Right.
Monona Drive, it's likely that that G route is actually going to be more effective for you than using the C route that loops through
right.
Monona.
Okay,
Even if you've got to make a transfer, it may still be quicker just because it's more direct and it is more frequent. But you would have both options essentially if you're on Monona Drive.
So you got your question answered.
I did, thank you.
All right, Doug, you wanna ask a question? You have to unmute. Yeah.
Yep. Question one from the email was actually my question. And I think you answered it. I think basically the answer was if we were going to have a route that goes through kind of central Monona, if you will, going the other way, then we would have to pay additional money to have that service expanded, right?
Right. So basically, the current loop or the current proposal
Mm-hmm.
cycles in about 30 minutes.
Right.
And so if we were to instead kind of eliminate the Stoughton Road section and make the rest of it two-way, so it basically, goes two-way on Dean, Winnequa, Nichols, all the way up Pemberite, kind of two-way to Menards.
Uh-huh.
It cycles in. Sorry, I had it pull up here a second, and then it's refreshing on me. It cycles in about 45 minutes. So basically, it's a 50%-ish increase in the number of the amount of time that a bus spends in Monona, and therefore the cost would go up roughly 50%.
Gotcha.
The reason why we took Stoughton Road was to eliminate that cost. I mean, that was the quickest way to get down to Broadway and start the route.
I guess my concern about what we'd always had as our route was, again, like if you're taking the C3 loop from a place with, where between where the loop starts and where before it rejoins with the main C route, there is no return bus to get back to where you started. That isn't the complete C route loop. Unless I'm mistaken.
No, you're correct. So if you're coming from one of the apartments on Pemberite and you're trying to get to the pool,
Yeah.
you've got a very easy trip on the way there.
Yeah.
On the way back, you basically got to take the bus up to Cottage Grove and Dempsey, get off the bus, and then wait for the next C3 going the other direction. to get
Yeah.
back to Pemberite.
Yeah. Either that or you would just, wouldn't it be the same amount of time to just stay on it and keep going and come back around? Maybe not. I see what you're saying. There's another one that's coming through cycling before the
Yeah.
route loops back on itself. Okay.
Right.
That was my main question, just because, you know, it seems to work well for regional transport outside of our bubble here, but within, one of the problems I was trying to solve was simply, you know, people getting downtown Monona, if you want to call it downtown, into the city center for civic activities like this, that don't have a car. You know, their option is maybe good to get there and not so good to get home.
And I would add, from our perspective, you know, operationally, we always prefer a two-way route.
Yeah.
The one-way loop is not ideal operationally for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we conceived that in order to get, you know, the cost down to where it was, you know, acceptable for Monona.
Totally.
If you want to revisit that, we are certainly open to doing so.
Well, what I want is may not be affordable, but when people are asking us as a commission about ridership, then I feel like ensuring that the route is useful for more trips is a one way to help improve the chances of having good ridership, in my opinion. So that's all. That's the motivation behind that question.
So
But I
just to be-
didn't realize there was some flexibility there either. So that's good to
Right.
know.
Yeah, very good.
And it is a bit challenging because we have to measure kind of in, you know, we can't cut a bus in half, right? So everything we have to be careful to kind of measure in increments of one bus.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where, you know, the loop, the 30-minute loop, we don't really have any extra time in that to, you know, do another deviation somewhere else in the city. And because that would make it 35 minutes, which would mean we have to add a bus anyway. And so that's when we go to the 45 minutes, we're adding a bus to the whole route, but we're doing so efficiently. We're not, you know, the main line C is operating every 15 minutes. So if we add 15 minutes to the route, that's just one whole bus, and we're not kind of being inefficient with it, if that makes sense.
I see. This might be a dumb question, but no, it is a dumb question. Never mind. I don't like it.
Okay. But just to be clear, if we were to do a two-way route, the cost would go up 50%, but the time of each of the loops would go up as well?
It would, so the total time the bus would spend in Monona would go up,
Mm-hmm.
but people would not have to be riding all the way around the loop. So basically, if you're at Monona Drive and Dean, you go straight downtown and then you come straight back there. You don't have to
Okay.
go all the way around
Okay.
the loop and come back around.
Oh, okay. So from the rider's point of view, there'll be less time spent on the bus.
Right, unless you're down at Femrite, which, you know, then it doesn't matter all that much, because you don't really mind going around the loop because it takes you directly where you're going.
Okay. So I have a question. I was wondering, will we be able to get ridership numbers specific to Monona in terms of whether or not we're reaching whatever the goals might be for ridership?
Yep, so we have stop level ridership data right now, basically boardings at each stop.
Okay.
And I would say it's a little sketchy at the moment. Just our technology system is pretty old, but we're actually replacing all of that over the next year. And so by late 2024, we'll have really good data, exactly how many people are getting on at each stop and how many people are getting off at each stop.
Okay.
And we'll be able to measure that with a lot more detail.
So the data you're getting now for the foreseeable future is not good enough to really get a sense of.
It's good enough for approximations. What we have right now is boarding data.
Are you guys
Okay.
almost done or?
How many people get on the bus? What we don't have is how many people get off the bus.
Oh,
And so that we'll add that level of detail. next year.
Okay. Great. I do have another question, but I just want to make sure, anybody else have another?
Go ahead.
In the email, you were asked about, getting a electric bus or a non-gasoline or non-carbon bus. And I think you said that you're hoping to replace the fleet, but that's gonna take a life cycle cost for the bus. So as far as Mona is concerned, we're not likely to see anything other than what you have now in the next 10 years.
You will, but it won't be exclusive, if that makes sense. So right now, we've only got 3 out of our 200 buses are electric. Next year, 50 out of our 200 buses will be electric when the VRT system opens. And that will continue to, that trend will continue. So, 5 years from now, I expect half of our buses to be electric, and maybe 10 years from now, it'll be 75%, and 15 years, it'll be 100%. And so that same trend and that same percentage mix will apply in Monona. So, in 5 to 10 years, I would expect every other bus going through Monona to be electric and every other one be diesel. What we can't do is dedicate buses to certain routes, because we basically have to assign the buses at random. Otherwise, it becomes an equity issue. We're giving the nice buses to the rich neighborhoods, and that gets us in a lot of trouble with them.
Yeah, okay. And since you get federal money, you have to pay attention to those equity issues. So if 50% of your fleet is electric, then 50% of the bus time in Monona would be electric, something like that.
Yeah, theoretically,
Okay.
in that ballpark.
And last question for me, I guess, till I think of another, is small buses. That's just not available. You don't deal with buses except for that one size.
Correct. So we actually did a study 10 years ago or so. It was before my time at Metro, but where we analyzed the operating cost of a large bus versus a small bus, and found that they were basically even. That any savings in fuel costs of the smaller vehicle was offset by having another vehicle in the fleet, where we had to stock different sets of parts and different mechanic training and all of that. And so it was basically a wash. And so the decision at that point was made to move entirely in the full-size bus direction. And so we do not have any smaller buses, nor do we really want to get into that.
Yeah, okay. Just doesn't economically, it won't work for you.
And it limits our flexibility dramatically, right? Because that's a bus then we can't send anywhere else. And so that it's challenging to have that different fleets.
Are you having worker shortages at all?
We are actually doing really well. We're not fully staffed yet, but we are very, very close. When I got here 3 years ago, we have about 300, a little over 300 drivers. And when I got here, we only had like 260 of them filled.
Okay.
So we were almost 50 people down. And we are very close to being fully staffed right now. I think we're down only like 6.
Oh, that's really good.
So we are doing quite well. I know nationally, other transit agencies and private contractors are having just really difficult times. And we're fortunate to be in a much better position.
And you would make up for it with overtime before?
Yeah. So we had people working 70-hour weeks before the pandemic, which was just nuts.
Right. Yeah. Are you working with other communities outside of Madison's like you are with Monona? Are we
Sun Prairie signed up.
Yeah, they just launched their bus.
They're up and
route Monday.
running.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so we've had we have partnerships with Sun Prairie, Verona, Middleton, and Fitchburg. The Middleton one is the longest. I think it's been in effect for like 30 years. Sun Prairie and Verona are newer. I think Sun Prairie just started like 5 years ago, and then they just dramatically upped their service just last weekend. And then Fitchburg's been around for maybe 15, 20 years
Okay.
as a partner for us.
Do they go off arterials into? Or what am I'm not using the right terminology. Do they go off the major streets into neighborhoods like proposing here?
Less so. There's some of that in Fitchburg. Certainly we, with the redesign, we tried to go more towards the main arterials.
Right.
Which I totally understand why in Monona that's not really feasible because, that the main, the center of the city is pretty far from Monona Drive, right? So it's difficult to
Right,
serve it there.
right,
Whereas
Right,
that's not quite the case everywhere else, right? In most cases, their main destinations are close to arterial, so it was possible.
okay. So we're like the last ones to possibly sign on here.
Yeah, I think I guess it depends on whether you consider Cottage Grove and Wanakee to actually touching Madison. I don't think they do. So I think you're the
Oh.
only other city that touches Madison that isn't.
Okay. But you are working with Cottage Grove and Wanakee.
No, we're not. We've had discussions with them, but
Okay.
we've not moved forward with anything. And McFarland, we've had discussions with them as well.
But nothing materialized yet.
Right. That none of them have any service like you all do.
Hmm,
So it's not about shifting dollars from this contractor to a different one. For them, it's coming up with the money from scratch. And they're trying to find a way to do that.
Is there something specific that Madison is trying to do to connect to all these communities? Are you trying to have a greater network for
What
your buses?
ultimately we want to be a service to the region, and that none of this is about dollars for us, right? As I think we've talked about before, our contract is straight cost share, so we don't profit a dime off of any of this. What we're trying to do is make sure that people can move around the region efficiently and effectively. One interesting note, I think, for us, so Madison is actually the largest city-run transit agency in the country that runs regional service. Almost every other city, big or medium, has their own separate regional transit authority with their own taxing authority that operates that regional service. And so there isn't these individual city jurisdiction issues.
Right,
And whereas we have been preempted from that by the state legislature, so we can't really do that. Yeah, the only ones bigger than us that are city-run departments are Detroit and San Francisco, but they both only operate within their city limits. They don't operate regional service. So
interesting.
a
Okay,
little fun fact there. For
no, I'm definitely gonna use that at the next party. Did have another question. Anyone else? Doug, you're out of questions?
Yes.
Okay. Give me a minute here. So, I was gonna ask with the rapid transit that you're working on now, will that affect anything outside of Madison or here in Monona?
It won't affect anything in Monona. It's the line that's under construction now is basically East Washington out and then out to the west. And then the second line we're planning is kind of the north-south, which is now the B line, the B route, basically adding infrastructure for that, which goes kind of north side to south side and Fitchburg. So
Okay,
nothing is planned that would touch Monona at this point.
okay. And so in terms of a timeline, is there something we should be aware of as far as Madison Metro is concerned?
So we need time to build everything into the schedules. And then we can only change service in certain intervals. So our union contract, so the way that basically our operators are all union and they pick their work, we just call that a pick. So we break the schedules into pieces, into individual runs, and then the drivers, based on seniority, will pick which runs they want to do.
Interesting.
And so our union contract allows us to do that like 4 times a year.
Okay,
And so we need to basically we need enough lead time before that, but then also the actual service implementation needs to fall on one of these pick dates, which are generally, I think, so like August and then December and then March and then May,
okay.
and then August again. So
So it could be as much as 3 months lead time.
we would need more than that to actually, so I would say if you gave us the okay in the next couple weeks, we could probably plan for the December pick. If
Okay.
it's longer than that, we would probably need to push to the March.
Okay,
Because it'll probably take us, we probably need at least 6 months lead time on that.
so if we don't get back to you in 2 weeks' time, we're looking at March.
Most likely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, approximately, right?
that's- I mean, we have to make a recommendation that has to go to the council.
So 2 weeks is probably not very late. Okay, so it sounds like the earliest might be December.
For the committee is, remind me where we are in our contract with First Student to operate the lift and the express.
So if I had a contract,
Okay, we're good. Never mind.
But
I was
I
like,
think we have like a 6 month,
I think it was 6 months thing, so it works out.
we have to give them 6 months to get out.
It'd
of
be the
the
same, yeah, 6 months,
Okay.
6 months at first. doing it.
I was just making sure that like we weren't looking at the end of the year having to renew a contract for 3 months or something.
No.
That's not an issue. Great.
Well, thank you very much, Justin. I appreciate your time. That was very, very helpful.
Yep.
of course.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate the extra info.
Yeah, no problem. And don't ever hesitate to reach out if you have additional questions.
We will. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dang, that was helpful. It's good to get all that information. What goes through. So, is there unfinished business? It says none, so we can skip over that. Did you hear me, Doug? So, new business, we should review the heat map from the transit survey, which I think you put together, is that right?
I did not do the GIS work on the map, but I worked with Brad, who's the GIS analyst. Brad, what's Brad's last name?
Bruin.
Broom, thank you. Worked with him to put this map together.
So it's actually a series of maps, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So it's 3 maps. Each map, the first map shows orange dots for opposed to transit, green dots for in favor of transit. The second page shows the same information, but just shows what the green dots are where it's favorable. And then the third page is just the orange dots where it's opposed.
Yeah.
Okay, so same maps. The maps are using the alternative route proposed in the email to transit, where the bus will go down Owen, turn on Pheasant Hill, turn left on Dean, what is the name of that road?
Nichols.
Well, Pheasant to Nichols to.
Nichols. I can never remember because it's Plum, right, over in Madison, and I can never remember Nichols. So yes, left on Plum, up Pinnaquan, up Dean, and then north on Monona Drive. So this is the modified proposed route. So where do the dots come from? I want to kind of explain that a little bit so you guys kind of understand what the dots mean. So first of all, when we did the survey, we asked people to give us their block and their street. Okay, so we did not ask people for their individual identifiable addresses. So the dots on the map do not represent a household's response. Okay,
Mhm.
so if you look at, say, the 300 block of LaBelle Lane, we know that there were 3 in favor and 2 opposed on the 300 block of LaBelle Lane. And that's distributed across the 300 block of LaBelle Lane randomly. Okay, so if you're looking at your house right now, like my house, if you look at my house, the corner of Sylvan and LaBelle, it looks like my household is opposed to transit, which we are not. We're strongly in favor of transit. And so, just to let you know, that's because we got information on the block and the street.
Mhm.
Okay, so the second piece of this is that there was about 15% of the responses to that question that were not directly and easily mappable from a block and a street, right? Some were easy, like misspellings of Tonawatha were very common. And so some of that we could map. But there were some responses that came in where we could not place them on the map because it was empty. Right? There was no response to the question. Because how they responded to the question, we couldn't understand. And also a small number, and I apologize, I don't have the total number on the top of my head, but people who gave us addresses that were not in Monona.
Hmm.
And that's because Monona business owners
Mhm.
could participate. And we think they were confused giving us their home addresses. So we did get some addresses, responses to the survey that were completely outside of Monona,
Yeah,
not like marginally close to.
oh,
totally
you
outside.
wanted their business address.
Yeah, so. So in the situation where we could map a block and a street. We were able to distribute those dots on the blocks and streets.
Mhm.
So do not, and I'm just gonna throw this caveat again. Do not look at the map and say, my neighbor thinks this of transit, because that is not an accurate interpretation of the map. Right, we're trying to get a distribution based on only knowing the block that someone lives on and the street that someone lives on.
Okay, so these are not pinpoint accuracy, they're approximate.
Right,
They
and
could
also
be
importantly.
left or right, you
we
know
are
the street they're on,
not-
but not where on the street.
Yes, and also importantly, we are not disclosing the home addresses of the people who responded to the survey. That's the other important part here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the green and the purple, those are people who are more than 3/4 of a mile from one of the routes. Is that right?
That's the shading. So the dots represent their
So yeah,
response. to
I'm
the
talking
survey.
about the shading.
Yes, and the shading is how close they are to a bus route.
Okay, and it varies on which bus route you're talking about. Okay. Questions?
I I wish the map didn't show parcels. I expect maybe some comments to come in about that, but hopefully people will read in the notes that a dot on a parcel is not representative of that person's location.
Yeah, when this goes to a public meeting, which I think.
We can reach out to.
Well, is this not already on the website 24 hours before our meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
but like you said, I think some level of explanation would be important so that people know it's not how it tied to a particular lot.
what I see is it's basically 50-50. Even on streets.
It does seem like a coin toss. Opposed versus not opposed.
Yeah, and that was also bore out by statistical analysis of subvariants, right? We looked at, are they on the route or off the route? Are the people by different age categories? Yeah, most of the ways that we looked at subcategories said that it still is 50-50 split in Monona.
But when you look at the routes, I think you were saying, it looks like more people are opposed, right? Would you say?
No, I
Really?
don't see a trend in any direction.
I'm seeing a lot more orange dots along the route than I see green dots. No, do you see them?
So statistically, when we pulled the numbers out and counted, there wasn't a difference. So it's possible that, well, one, that the route also includes everybody up north and not just along like Dean and Winnequa,
Oh,
right?
Are you,
Awesome.
Rick, are you referring to just directly adjacent to the green line?
yes. Yes. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Do you, does that change the comment to you, Addie?
So I could potentially see identifiable clusters.
Mhm.
But again, my problem is that the names are. Yeah, or the dots are randomly distributed along that block.
Mhm.
But they're on that
So,
street.
you know, we could say, for example, between Winnequa and Dean,
This area right here.
Between
right.
Nichols and Dean on Winnequa. That would be,
no, sorry, between Winnequa and Monona Drive on Dean.
okay,
Like you could count up and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 adjacent properties, I think positive, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 opposed. You could make that,
right.
but
But it seems consistent though with the other major parts of the route, be it Winnequa or Nichols.
I would say that if that is a trend that I particularly also see that kind of, you know, grouping around the route from opposed, but that doesn't surprise me in terms of survey respondents, because I would think that if you're on the route, you're more inclined to respond to the survey. If you're not in favor of the survey. Not trying to overly read into this data, but it doesn't surprise me that it's appears that way. But I would say in general, the distribution of responses in both ways is relatively equally spread out throughout the community. And responses from people in favor of this transit map change or service change are not clustered in any particular area, as some people have insinuated they might be. So I find this heat map pretty useful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. I just see that there will be pockets of resistance, particularly of those people who live adjacent to the route.
Mhm.
And that's understandable. It's not unexpected, but I think it looks to me like it's there.
Well, I think, I've said before, I'm just reluctant with this percentage business, and it's not a referendum. It's not a referendum at all. And it's our job and the city council's job.
Oh, yeah.
To think about
I'm
the
not,
sustainability goals and,
absolutely. There are lots of things to consider.
yeah, so,
And
but
that's
it
one.
just makes me, to me, it's not helpful to think, well. About half the people, but for one thing, it's the people who answered the survey, it's not the people, right? And it's just not, it's my thinking about this is that I need this. Monona, what's best for the community. I guess.
Oh, I totally agree. I'm just trying to.
But I just worry about the language that we use publicly and people, that's what Diane said to me at the senior center. We must be tough, it's split right down the middle, it's 50-50, isn't it? Well, so.
Right.
yeah,
That was a certain, yeah. 'Cause they're just looking at that one page.
Yeah.
Page.
Well, I mean, that gets into.
If it were 60-40 or if it was 75-25, I guess I'm not sure my thinking about it would be that different.
yeah, because I think of it is that half the people in our community are in favor of improving our transit. Many people on the survey said that our transit needs to be improved.
Good.
And so for me, the question is, we got all of this wonderful, rich feedback from our community about how to change our proposal to make it work for the community. Right? As we proposed, they were 50-50. But then we got all of these suggestions on how we can make that proposal better, which is how I think we can go forward gaining support by making adjustments. I mean, some things, I don't want any buses anywhere in the community. Like, we're not going to Or the transit committee, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I think we have a certain mission, which is to deal with the transit and to make it better and to manage it as best we can.
Mhm.
Not do away with it for sure. But I guess, I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but what are the criteria for a decision? You mentioned sustainability. I don't know if our numbers are gonna change up or down. Are we gonna get more or less people? But is that one of the goals? Getting more people?
To ride the bus,
Right.
to support the proposal to change the bus, sorry.
No, to ride the bus,
Ride the bus,
to
yeah.
increase our ridership numbers.
Which takes years.
I would say one way to look at the rubric for us to make a decision is to look at our mission, which is basically just finding an efficient way to move goods and people through the community. So we've not written down our list of criteria, but I think we've got it all memorized, and I think it wouldn't hurt for us to create a list that touches on what improvements we want to make with regard to service and equity and sustainability, and access, community access. For me, those have been the main factors. That's also been my driving, force behind my review and questioning of the route that we've been presented with.
Say that again, what were the one or two things you wanted to focus on?
Aside from like the easy stuff like sustainability and providing equitable service, I think access to and from Monona. I think it might have been Chuck who's on the call, who's at this meeting, who mentioned how Monona had been viewed as a black hole, a transit black hole. And people that don't drive have a problem getting in and out of here nights and weekends.
You got a thumbs up from Chuck on
I
that.
think I was right. So, that's a question that's been asked of us and needs to be answered. I just fear that the improvements that I feel like we need to make come at a higher cost financially. So
Are you talking about what you guys are saying, the extra?
Two-way.
It's two-way.
I don't really think the C3 route is great in the one way. It's great for going. It's great if you go past Cottage Grove Road, it's fine. But if you're using the bus to travel within the Monona area,
I think
doesn't
we
work.
definitely should ask for kind of an estimate about the
I can get an estimate of what it costs.
two-way.
I think he kind of alluded to it.
He did kind of.
I can get it detailed.
His email said 130,000, right?
First,
Our share. It's not all we care about. No?
Well, it seems to me, the city has adopted sustainability goals and DEI goals, diversity goals. And then there's the plan commission too. Where does that fall? I think it's important for people to have access to the city center, to their government. I think we do have some
Right.
criteria. And to San Damiano and to the Leopold.
Access to those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can think about, well,
You're talking about local access.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the in Monona stuff that I think we have to work on.
so you want me to follow with Mass Metro, get a more detailed quote?
Yeah.
As soon as we close, but I'll see if there's any change.
So.
We can make recommendations to the council, but we would have to leave like the financial decisions out of our hands, right?
Right,
Like we can say, we recommend doing this and it costs this.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Or you can do this and it costs the same.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do two recommendations, if that's the route to go Metro over the other one.
I mean, I feel given that the new metro system rolled out Monday, Sunday, this weekend.
Mhm.
I feel a sense of a greater sense of urgency to move forward.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Why do you feel that?
Um, I think mostly because people are in a period of flux in the bus system. Learning the new system, learning the new routes, learning how they can get around the community on this bus system. Metro is investing a lot of energy right now in helping enable people to understand the new system. And we're missing out in Monona on that groundswell.
Yeah, there's some momentum right now.
Yeah, so, we with a, potential earliest initiation of, March next spring. We're missing school initiations, we're missing, and I don't know. We're missing, the winter. bump
Maybe we
in
need to set
feelers.
ourselves kind of a timeline.
Well, that's the question. I mean, so you're saying. I guess it's a question I would need. If it wasn't just the one, just the one loop, you don't have the two, the second, is that still the way you want to go? I mean, that's. Because one's gonna be a lot more expensive,
Mhm.
so I think the council need to know either regardless,
Mhm.
you want to go Metro.
Well, it depends on how they value local access, because seems like the one way to get it. So if we place a value on it and we want to recommend that to the city council, that's how we could word it. It'll cost this much more if we want routes that will help people get to local shops, government meetings, the library.
I guess the other side, I mean, I'm just looking at the financial side too, and they say, well. It's an extra 50,000 to do it. And we're gonna cut for that. So that's the other side of it, so.
Yeah, and that's the decision the council will have to make. But I think the transit commission is to give the council its best recommendation.
So you want me for the next meeting, kind of get what that. Would be that, so I think it's that kind of what that number.
I don't know that if it's $1 more or $130,000 more, if it's all that important to us. I think what's important to us is recommending the right service.
That's right.
I mean, I think that information is very necessary for us to finalize that decision or for the council to do that. But I have like strong feelings about it working much better on, in a two-way scenario than it does in a one-way scenario. So,
It's hard to recommend the one way.
it's harder, I'm not gonna write two recommendations. And one of them is, I strongly recommend this, but I also recommend this. I don't know. I think we have to make one clear recommendation. I don't know. I still like,
Yeah,
we've had a bit of a, I'm having a bit of a hard time knowing. I know, Mark, you've got a very good insight on what our leeway is, and to date, it's been zero leeway on extra budget for this. But it's just hard for me to get my mind around the expectation that we could add all these goals to the way the city operates that are enhancements over the status quo.
But it wouldn't cost
And
anything.
then not expect that we would pay any more for that.
Yeah. it'd be-
Right, it's
Yeah.
one thing to recommend it in the abstract, it's another thing when the rubber hits the road, literally.
So in the way I see it is like, it's a compromise on a lot of things. So it's good, it's better in some ways, and it's not better in other ways, which people have been pointing out to us the whole time.
And actually, the two-way does respond to a number of concerns that people raised, even the pro people said. But kind of depends how long you have to wait and where it is.
Well, but a lot
You
of
know.
the people opposed said they don't want buses going through every hour. And we're gonna come back and say, no, now we're gonna have buses going by every 30 minutes and it's gonna cost more.
Right.
And I feel like this is,
That's
you know,
true.
because this has been kind of the. You know, my hesitancy is, I think from the beginning of this conversation. We have put cost neutral at the forefront of our argument,
Mhm.
right? To say that we can do all of this and it's not gonna cost that much more.
Right.
It costs less, wasn't
A
it?
little less.
Yeah, cause,
That's
and you know, and I'm
something.
thinking back to like that comparison table that we
Mhm,
put together.
mhm.
You know, and one of the big selling points there was that we won't have to raise, thank you, yeah, we won't have to be raising revenue. Or to making cuts in other parts of city government in order to improve the bus system.
Mhm.
And so Doug, I like. You're pulling my position farther in your direction and
I'm not, and I'm here, look, I'm not trying to be persuasive here.
You're being
think-
very persuasive. You're making me think about a lot of things I haven't thought about. So
I'm
thank-
just, I've really, I mean, you know, we've all thought about this a lot, and one of the, this one has been, it's just it's just something that's stuck with me. I don't know that we saw it as a con at first, because I don't know that it was easy to understand how the route would work.
Right.
Mhm.
It wasn't until I started thinking through scenarios, especially like attending civic activities and the things that I thought we were like, you know, ironically, all these people had shown up to our public hearings, but getting a ride by the current bus service that was outside of its hours of operation, like
Right.
it's just wildly ironic to me, but you know, those are the kinds of things that I was like, man, what would make this easier for me? Because again, you know, there's a lot of people that aren't in favor of this in the community, and I'm like, whatever we recommend, it better, you know, it better be a solid program. It better work well. You know, so I'm just picking out the flaws really and seeing what does it take to fix those.
So if I go back to Metro. How do you want me to tell them, okay, because they gotta run the route, they gotta make sure that the times and everything, so they can give us a pretty accurate number. How do you want that route to be? Just exactly the same back as the way? I guess I just wanna tell them what type of route you want.
Yeah, because if we
Yeah, so
create,
Metro, Dean, to Winnequa, to Nichols.
if we create a route through the neighborhood and improve it to meet the safety standards that people are asking of us with sidewalks and things like that, we're definitely going to want to use it. Right? In both
Right.
ways. We're not going to want to make multiple routes that would cause even more chaos.
So would it make sense just to go down Nichols instead of going down on a little bit over to Pheasant Hill?
Why would you do that?
With the just the route in general?
Yeah,
Well, we missed one of our main target constituencies of riders on Olin there.
but they would have access to a quick walk to Monona Drive. If you're going, they would have to cross the road and they're. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
think.
maybe. Yeah.
So I just need to, just let me know what you think it should be. Cause we wouldn't go without a Fenright back again, so.
How are we gonna do that? By email?
I mean, well, I just need to tell them, I just need to show them what it look like.
Well, if we're gonna have you ask them a question, we should probably figure out what it is.
Right, so that's what I want to
Yeah.
figure out what the problem might be.
And so you're wondering if it should be anything other than just double back.
Well, let me pull up the.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to pull up as well, because the maps that we have don't actually have like the whole route on them.
No,
It has like different. Or it has kind of a hybrid of all of the routes.
just kind of share this for now. Well, here's the route. Route comes down here now, comes up. Cops, the Femrite. Over here, Monona Drive. I believe this is Owen Road. The Pheasant Hill to Nichols, and then down around.
Wait, I thought we were going through Broadway and Monona to get to the garage, to the.
You're thinking about here?
Yeah, I thought we had decided that that was like a big. Okay, my apologies, I'm behind, I didn't realize.
I thought we picked this way because it picks up the Shadow Lane people and these people over here. And there's really nothing over here for like a residential. I mean, you could, then you move on, where do you pick these people all have to, but I guess it doesn't matter one or the other.
Does.
But, I mean,
Well, yeah, because the May meeting, or not the May meeting, the April meeting, when we first went through the survey results, one of the big things that stood out was people saying, why isn't this going to the grocery store? Why isn't this going to the bank? Why isn't this going to the shopping centers?
Oh, good point.
Right, so you can't on that secondary route, you
No.
can't go to the grocery store in
because
an hour.
it's always here, yeah, it's always here. To here. And around, so if you go to Touray, you just want to come back, same thing. But then you just come, instead of going down here, you come down here and around. That's what I would.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think you want the same route reverse.
Yeah. I mean, is that something you guys are thinking, or I guess, what other
Well,
ideas?
I think that'll get us our answer, whether or not it's the exact route that we're gonna do or not. I think it'll
Well-
give us a good cost estimate, right?
Well, I thought we have to propose an exact route.
Yeah,
we-
whether or not that's the exact route that we actually do, it'll still give us a pretty good estimate.
I think we should,
But sooner or later.
Yeah, because
No, 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 I
recommendation, because,
understand we have to
yeah,
figure
because
it out.
we need that number to make a recommendation, and the recommendation has to be the final route. Or
Well,
at
if you
least
wanna-
a recommended, optimized recommended.
How exact can we be right now with the time we have remaining? This goes till 7:30,
those lunch you want.
okay. If we keep quorum. So is that what we want to do, is figure out an exact route to be able to ask the question of Metro?
For the two.
Well, I was, one of the things that we probably put on pause a little bit was discussing the actual route, mostly because the nuance of the route was not as on the forefront as
Right.
a lot of the other concerns that were brought up. But I would agree that there is a flaw there in access to the grocery store. I don't know if the presence of the G route alleviates some of that, because it does serve a part of the Monona community on Monona Drive, but then
So Giro would come down.
there's the whole lobe off to the west that's not served that way. If the C3 route went both directions, that would improve things, because a quick ride down to Monona Drive from up north in Monona could put you on the H route, and that would get you there. Granted, a transfer like that isn't ideal, but it's not, maybe if the timing is right, it maybe isn't that bad of a ride. I don't know. So yeah, my heart is torn because there's a number, well, and perhaps there's a bus stop on Monona Drive there that can serve the community that lives there on Femrite well enough.
Yeah, that cluster closer to Monona. But not those, was it Shadow you said?
Yeah. That's that purple lobe off to the northeast of that little Femrite route there.
Yeah. You want to spend more time on getting a route to go to Monona with?
I guess to be honest, I've been in a meeting since 8:30 this morning without ceasing. And my
Oh,
decision-making
God.
capabilities right now are at their poorest.
Totally agree with that. Yeah.
Okay,
I
Well-
have no I'm of no assistance with the route. I've been here a year and I
Okay.
don't. No,
Okay,
but I mean,
That-
you know, I think what we could accomplish perhaps is kind of a timeline. Set some goals for
Okay.
ourselves to,
well, I want to figure out what our next steps are.
right,
And I'm thinking we wanna put enough of a route together to get a question to Monona, to Metro.
What I can do is I can get 4 routes too, and I can do this current one. I can do wrap around here, I can go back to the Maywood. To Owen Road up through here,
Oh, and get more than one cost estimate?
yeah, I think I'd probably get 2.
That,
I don't think they'd be that different.
I don't mind that.
okay,
I think
Or you
it's-
could just ask them if they think there's a big difference between the Femrite
Right.
or the Broadway leg.
Yeah, I think basically they probably know it, I think they just have to drive it to make sure that it makes sense
Right.
with the times and the style.
okay, okay. So that's good. We've worked that out. Great. I'm wondering if the next session might focus on establishing and writing what this criteria is or making a decision. And then using that as a rating sheet so that it's more objectively evaluated and every committee member gets to rate each of these issues and then you do a cumulative idea and then you have something that makes it something you can show to the public that this is how we rated each of these issues and this is how we chose this route or that route.
I think that's okay, but it's. I have to say that I believe it's too late for me to not be biased in writing the criteria around
Yeah,
a system, the two systems that I already know about, you know? Like,
Well, I have faith in you, Doug.
okay,
I know you're a smart guy and I know you can. If you hadn't been in meetings since 8 o'clock today, I think you would have said
I
something
think we'll
different.
be able to come to consensus
Yeah,
about our
But I think-
recommendation and why we're recommending.
Yeah. What I don't want is like everyone just on their own gut response saying, I like A over B. And that you have something explicit in writing over, these are the 5 things we looked at, and this is why we thought this rated over that. That's how I would do it. Nancy could come and totally
Right.
over,
You want a rubric?
I want a rubric,
Well,
rubric's cute. Yeah, I think an objective criteria for listing each of the values that we're trying to advance makes sense to me. Nancy could come and totally overrule me, but that's what I would think might be helpful.
yeah,
Well,
I
I
agree
do
with
wanna-
that completely.
and I do want to add that, you know, part of the survey that we sent out to the community was to ask them to weigh the different
Mhm.
priorities and what matters to them.
So
Right?
there are lots of things we
So,
can bring to the table. at
Yeah,
this
because
point.
I'm thinking that we already have the information from the community, what we should be using. And how we should be
Yeah,
weighting it.
But that has to be
as
balanced
opposed
with
to-
official city plans,
Mhm.
sustainability, diversity. Those are
Yeah.
things we have to also take into account, correct?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we had.
Are all those in the survey you're
yeah,
saying?
that's just what I was.
Yeah, because that
Okay.
was the thing, you know.
And
So
then
maybe-
we had a lot of comments.
So maybe those are the criteria for the most part.
And we know, you know, that this is the most important thing to so many, or this is in high importance to so many people that respond to the survey.
Okay,
And so that should tell us how we weight things as well,
right.
right? That we need to evaluate it on, you know, affordability. And because that's, you know, I don't remember what the number said here, but you know, whatever number 1 is, that should be weighted heavily. And then we assess,
Okay,
yeah.
so I think you're saying the survey can kind of lead us to what we need. in
I think
terms-
so. It just feels like there's this spot and this and this, and you just
Well-
have to put them together and think it over. and make
It may not
recommendations.
have every criteria in it, but we should definitely consider all the criteria it lays out.
Right.
Yes, exactly, exactly. See, you're still able to work a problem through.
In November. First Transit was about 105,100 a year. Yeah, and Metro was gonna be 78 to 86.
But I wonder,
So if we 50% that.
But isn't there fares that you get with first student? So that would be
That's that and everything.
105 is net
Yeah,
after the fares that come
after
in.
the fairs. and
When they
state aid.
canceled routes and it's, are they still having trouble with getting drivers?
Yeah, you have to cancel, yeah, and that's a subtract of all the other revenues and that's the same with Madison. They took an estimate. Sort of.
But with Monona first student. 5,
So that's a property,
but then there are fares that come in, right,
yes,
like 20,000 or something.
yeah, 15 or 15, 20.
So that would lessen the difference.
Fares are, this is already net of the fares.
That's net of the fare.
Yeah.
That's what I
Oh,
thought.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
That's.
Because here it says fares account for only a small part of the funding, so that's why it wasn't included there.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a net, both of them are net
Okay,
of all the
well,
state aids.
with Metro, we wouldn't get the fares. Metro gets. the fares.
And what they would do is they would apply it to our,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Oh, well, that's very interesting.
yeah. So they, they get X amount of fares, it's just gets applied.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. Okay,
Good or bad.
all right. Well, I guess maybe Nancy will give me some more direction when she comes back. I guess she'll be here for the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay,
Or what does a recommendation to the council typically look like? It'll be a long document with lots of explanation.
No, it's just recommends, that's. They just recommend,
Do you envision like a couple pages?
no, it's just one page. Just the Trans Commission recommends the 2A, this is the document. And then from there, they'll need backup for a lot of that stuff.
right. I think the more we give them up to a point, but something that really articulates the reasoning behind the decision will be important.
But I do worry that just to 2A through. That dollar amount, depends what the dollar amount ends up being, how much of an increase. And they say, well. We don't want that big of an increase.
And then.
And
what
And
else
then,
do?
and then what are you back to?
That's
And that's
my
their-
big
that's-
concern.
Well, that's their choice. and
Well,
Rightfully so, but I think we should give them our best. Choice, what we really believe is the right thing to do. And let them compute the financial end of it. If they say, sorry, we can't go that far. We have to take another look and maybe there's a second best choice, but. I would say give them your best option. Even if it is,
Does Metro have some kind of expert who can sit down with us and, we've got our maps and we want these places and we don't want people to. Have to wait an hour for the, to go all the way out to Cottage Grove Road to.
you mean in terms of determining a route? I imagine there is, but outside of a meeting, you thinking?
They said, they looked up the ratings, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean. What I think you're saying is basically, you go there and you can. Get off at the Dempsey, is it Dempsey Road? or whatever?
yeah,
There and wait for the bus that's coming back again, and jump on.
Right,
So you really won't be waiting an hour. That's only really.
no, but even half.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
only way they really. About the 2A.
Right.
okay. So Mark, are you gonna be on this committee when the new city administrator?
Yes.
is? You will still be here, okay.
What new city?
Oh, they hired a new guy.
What? Where was I? I
I
know
don't know.
it was so
Have you
hard
got
to
anything?
find somebody, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's a, I can't remember his last name.
They'll shoot deep,
Yeah, so he's more of an economic, he's a planner. Guy.
he works for the city of Green Bay's economic development director.
Okay.
But he's had his hands in a lot of different things up in Green Bay, and he starts in July,
Yeah,
next month.
And you get to go back to Parks and Rec?
not me,
Yeah.
no, back to finance, just.
Oh,
Well, I bet that's.
Yeah,
Oh, boy, that's the best news you've heard probably in a while.
Oh. Yeah, I wish I could start sooner.
All right, have we concluded our business for today?
Well, I don't think there's really nothing.
Is there no report on that?
No.
I'll just say that I went to an exhibit at the Chazen
Did you call?
of re-emancipation,
Yeah.
where they deconstruct this statue of Lincoln. It was called the Emancipation Group. And there were a series of statues where he's got his hand over a kneeling slave with broken chains. And there's certain power structure implied in that statue, and they deconstructed it and took a fresh look. And a new statue was created by a very well-known artist that has Frederick Douglass standing over a sitting Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And so they have the dialogue between those. But they have this great timeline of history leading up to that point, which I thought in and of itself was very non-European centric, and it was an amazing show. And I recommend it. It's up to the 25th. But that's my only add for that. So, thank you all. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Don't move.
No seconded.
I'll
All in
second.
favor, say aye.
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 It's official and anonymous. I mean unanimous. Thank you, guys.
All right. You guys.
Bye, Doug.